Joining us now is congressional candidate Barry Moore. Barry, thank you for speaking with us tonight.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me, Paige. It's an honor to be here.
Wonderful.
Honor to be here.
Well, let's talk about this. There are multiple heated issues and topics in our country right now. George Floyd's death and protests. What are your thoughts on those issues?
Well, obviously, it's a challenging time for our nation. And from a leadership standpoint, I think the president has done what he could to try and alleviate. And he's done so many press conferences between the COVID-19 and the riots. But at the same time, I don't think he's micromanaged. I mean, he's allowed these governors, these mayors, these city councilmen to make the decisions that they needed to make while offering support. And so it's been a difficult time, a challenging time. We've got some interesting times ahead for this nation. We need some healing in the process. We need some forgiveness, but we also need some leadership. And I hope that we're able to provide that.
There have been Confederate monuments that have been taken down in Alabama and around the country. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that if you erase your history, that's a dangerous thing for any nation. I mean, even you and I, growing up, we look back at the lessons we've learned throughout life, and as a nation, if you erase your history, you forget where you came from. Now, I'm not saying this nation is perfect, but we need to understand where we came from and get a vision of where we want to go. And I think erasing history is a dangerous thing. That's what Hitler did. That's what ISIS does to this day. They burn books and they destroy monuments and those sort of things that remind us of who we are.
Okay, now what are your thoughts going into this election and the runoff? What are you hoping the public sees from you?
Well, I hope they find out about Barry Moore. You know, I tell everybody 2020 is hindsight, and if you look at my track record in the Alabama legislature, I was the most dependable conservative vote. I'm the only veteran in the race. I'm the only Trump delegate in the race, and I was the first in the nation to endorse him. So I have a track record that tells you a little bit about who I am, and I've always done what I told people I was going to do. So I hope they'll look at that, my history, as we're talking about, and say, how is Barry Moore going to govern going forward? We're a grassroots campaign. We like to be among the people. We will lead from among the people.
You've talked about term limits before. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I term limited myself in the Alabama legislature, but at the same time, I signed a term limits pledge for Congress. I don't think it should be a career. I'm a small business owner who's willing to go serve, and so I've signed a term limits pledge. I think we need to look at that process and make sure that not only just the good guys leave, but we have a changing of the guard, if you will, and even with the lobbyists, to make sure that we don't leave the swamp too intact when the legislators leave.
If you could tell the public one thing that you want them to know from you heading into these tough times with the protests and the police reform and the monuments and really COVID-19 still here, what do you want people to get from you? What do they want to know?
I want them to understand there's hope for this nation. It's the greatest nation, not a perfect nation, but the greatest nation that man has ever been able to put together. We have a constitution, we have freedoms and opportunities, and so our brightest days as America is ahead of us. But at the same time, just remember that let's not forget where we've been. Let's learn from those experiences. Let's try to heal going forward and give a little grace to your brother and sisters, and let's make this nation as great as it can be.
All right, thank you so much, Barry. Congressional candidate Barry Moore, thank you for being with us here tonight.
Thank you.
All right, coming up